Hey, Adam, the ski season is underway.
Oh, is it?
It's showtime. This is The Ski Show, the ultimate show ski podcast, and your one and only source for all things show skiing, bringing you news, knowledge, and interviews with the legends and stars of our sport. Here are your hosts, Matt Heilman and Adam Schaller.
Welcome to the Ski Show, still the only media on the planet dedicated to the sport of show skiing. I'm not sure if anyone noticed, but we skipped an episode. It's been a hot minute since we've produced one. We have been 4 weeks instead of 2 weeks on this, but here we are. Interestingly, our last episode, the practice episode, Adam, like we're talking about practice.
Yeah, practice.
Was our I thought nobody would listen to that. It's been our number one episode of the year so far.
What does that say about our year?
Yeah, all right. Oh man. Yeah, so it was well received. So and here we are now. We're going to be talking about all about the history of SeaWorld. We have not done an expose on SeaWorld yet. We're going to have some great folks joining us today to talk all about the history of the SeaWorld shows.
And today's sponsors are the Board Shop. All your summer and winter board sports gear is yours at bswake.com, and by Sega Sports, on water and trampoline training that you need for this summer. Find them at segasports.us.
Adam, how has the start to your summer been with no ski team in your life?
You know, it's surprising how easy you slide into that.
Like out of sight, out of mind?
Yeah. Like it was, a massive part of my life for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
But, like you said, out of sight, out of mind is like this past Sunday, Mad City has their shows at 6:00 on Sunday. And I had gotten home from a little paddleboarding adventure up north and glanced at the clock and it's like 6:30. I'm like, oh, I'd normally be at a ski show.
Yeah.
I know what Sunday night feels like in the summer. And so it's, do I miss it? Yes, of course I do. But there is that kind of out of sight, out of mind mentality. Plus, Annika's graduating this high school. For those of you that have watched Mad City shows over the year, yes, my daughter is graduating high school. And so we've just been like busy. I looked at the calendar this past weekend with my wife, and we do not have an open weekend until the weekend after the state tournament.
Wow. Busy.
And that's without ski team.
No. Yeah, you're going to drum corps events and graduation
parties and all of that.
Yeah, we have the same. Like it's crazy busy with Riley graduating, and we're doing ski team and all the things. So it's interesting. Well, nonetheless, we miss you, Adam, and hopefully you miss us a little bit.
I do, and I have I guess Mad City just ran their first themed show last Sunday, so I have
it was a smashing success.
I have a meeting with the production crew on Monday.
Apparently
there's been some rewrites.
Apparently, yes. There will be an Adam voiceover.
I wasn't told about that.
Oh, you will. You'll find out Monday. So great stuff. We've got this great episode coming today, but before we meet our guests and talk about the history of SeaWorld, we need to chat about Sega Sports.
Yeah, that's right. If you want to take your training to the next level, you need to check out Sega Sports. They're helping skiers of all levels take their game up a notch in 2026.
Yeah, one of their core benefits is trampoline training and coaching. For freestyle jump in particular, you can get proper training on a trampoline and learn new tricks without all the harsh falls. Learn the technique and the air sense you need before you take that trick to the water.
Sega Sports is helping all sorts of athletes, and they can help you too. Find them at segasports.us. That's segasports.us.
Well, let's get to our main interview today. We are talking all about the history of professional ski shows at SeaWorld. We're going to talk past history, great memories, and current shows. And we have 3 longtime SeaWorld legends with us today. Let's welcome to the show Jessica DePorter, Dan Stewart, and Tom Weber. Hey, guys.
Hi there.
Hey, good to see you.
Welcome, welcome.
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of kick things off. So a question for each of you, for all of you to answer, would be talk a little bit about your history in water skiing, the sport of, and your roles at SeaWorld. And Dan, we're going to start with you.
Okay. My history started straight out of high school. Didn't even make it to high school graduation because we graduated a week after we got out, and I headed straight to SeaWorld of Ohio. So in 1979, started at SeaWorld of Ohio. I skied my first summer there and then came down to Florida and did some other work before I got hired on at SeaWorld of Florida for the last couple of months before heading back to Ohio. In a nutshell, I did 6 summers in Ohio, and all the rest was full-time in Florida. I then went out to Texas up until I think it was 94 was when I last worked for SeaWorld of Texas directly. I then skied for another contractor while I had a full-time work in the pharmaceutical industry, and I went out on weekends once in a while. And the second year of doing that, World Entertainment Services had taken over, and I was fortunate enough to work with them. And at the end of that season, Tom and I had a conversation, and he offered me a position of Director of Human Resources and Safety with World Entertainment Services, and I've been with them ever since, back at SeaWorld. So pretty much since 1979, right up to present, if not performing in shows, I've had the wonderful opportunity to provide that opportunity for others.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah.
Tom, how about you?
Well, I predate Dan by a little bit in age and in tenure at SeaWorld, or starting date. I actually started the first year that SeaWorld did their own production for their ski show. The park opened in, I believe, 71, and Bartlett's, through Fred Hardwick, produced a contract show for them for a couple of years, and then SeaWorld hired a couple of major Hollywood heavy hitters to produce a show similar to what Hardwick and Bartlett's did, but with a much bigger budget. It was a ski, sky, and stage show. That's not how they built it. That's how Bartlett's built theirs. But it had lots of variety performers in there and some skiing. I mean, it was not the typical ski show at all. My wife and I were in New Hampshire going to school, and somewhere in the first part of the year in '74, I got my water ski magazine and saw an ad in there for skiers at SeaWorld, and made a phone call, signed up for it, and after a little bit of back and forth, we got the job. My wife and I, my wife Karen, skied at the Gardens and at Disney with me, and then SeaWorld for many years until she started having babies, and so we ended up at SeaWorld of Florida sometime in late May, early June. This ski show was already up and running, and it was quite a departure from what I think we all understood ski shows were, but the SeaWorld team, after some of the heavy-hitting Hollywood types had done what they could do, it turned in really a pretty good show, a show that was fun to watch and fun to ski in. And then from that point, every summer I'd come back until 1976. And that was the year that SeaWorld of Florida opened the Atlantis Theater. And I went down along with most of the staff from Ohio. They pretty much cleaned house in Ohio and brought everybody down to Florida for the opening of the Atlantis, and had a big press show. The show we were skiing that year, we sort of proofed it in Ohio. It was the superhero show, which was a huge success. And for the next couple of years, it went back and forth between Ohio and Florida. And in, I think, 1980, I got the job as show director for both the Ohio and the Florida show. And that was great for a couple of years. And by that time, we were having more kids, and I realized that I needed to do something with a little bit more income potential. And I reached out to the SeaWorld folks, and we got a couple of different positions in the park. Unfortunately, both of those positions ended shortly after I got there, and the second one of those was right after my wife gave birth to our fourth child. And I found myself without a job, and loved the ski industry, and I managed to have sort of a chance opportunity to spend time with Terry Snow, who owned World Publications and Water Ski Magazine and a whole host of other magazines, and Terry Dorner, who had just landed the contract with Anheuser-Busch for the Bud Pro Water Ski Tour. So I did that for quite a few years, and that was just a great opportunity. Hit the road, wasn't home a lot. Unfortunately, my wife was holding down the fort. But at some point in there, it was in the 90s, we had an opportunity to bid for the contract show business for SeaWorld. They'd done it in-house until first several of the parks, for most of the time. And then they were decided to go ahead and go contract. Gary Thompson got some of the parks for a little bit, and in, I think it was 95, is that right? And I think in 95 was when we got the contracts, and that was a big push. We got Florida, and we got Texas and California the first year. When we got the award, I called Peter Flack, a good friend of mine, and a guy that had done his own contract shows in South Florida, and said, I need help. We've got to staff this show. And he came on board and got it staffed. And as Dan said, I reached out to Dan, and man, he was available and couldn't have had a better partner. Peter's always had 3 jobs or more, and he was perfectly happy to step out of the way, and Dan took over and never looked back and did a great job. And in 81 is when I stepped away from the ski show and did the other things for SeaWorld, but was really glad to have an opportunity.
2001? You said 81.
2000, I'm sorry, it was 95. 95 was the year that we started the contract business, and Dan ended up in Ohio that year, and that was really the start of World Entertainment Services. So, anything you want to fill in?
But I'm stuck on this idea that show directing is not a lucrative career.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd be surprised by that.
I think all of us here understand that, right? We wish it was.
You got this love of sport factor in there,
yeah.
And I wrote it. I wrote it as long as I felt I could get away with it, and we needed to make a change, and the change was good, and it didn't end up good to begin with. But when I got with World Publications and Terry Snow, and Terry Snow is running a business that's all magazines, it's publishing, and I come to him with this idea: look, I want to contract these ski shows. It has nothing to do with his core business, and he says, if you think you can do it, I want to give you the opportunity, and he did, and that was a great experience. So for a while, a couple of years, I did World Entertainment only, and then I started back with some other event properties for World Pub, and Dan sort of picked up, and I sort of faded away a little bit. But you know, I was in there until 2018. I left the company in 2018, and Dan kept going, and we're still going, and it's really blows my mind that World Entertainment is still something in 2026. So, but I'm so happy it is. And Jessica came on board. I don't know when did you start, Jess?
Entertainment. I started in 1996. My first year was in 1995. I worked straight for Anheuser-Busch.
96.
In Ohio at the Ohio Park for three summers, but in between those 3 summers, that second summer in 96 is when World Entertainment got the contract for Ohio. And then I was hired in 1997 to a full-time position with the SeaWorld of Florida Park after doing the little back and forth between Ohio as well as Texas. And shortly after getting hired full-time at SeaWorld of Florida, I think about 6 months, is when World Entertainment took over the contract at SeaWorld of Florida as well. So then I was there full-time until 2002, and then came out here to Texas. 2002 to current. And then took over the show director position here in Texas in 2007, I believe it was. 2006, 2007. Yeah.
Just say it with confidence and nobody will know.
Yeah.
Incredible
so
career.
am I hearing between the 3 of you, you've pretty much been involved with SeaWorld since, in some form or fashion, since the start, all the way through now, right? Like
Between the 3 of us, yes.
yeah, between the 3 of you. Yeah.
Except for a couple of years when Bartlett's at the Ohio show, we've had one of us has had something to do with ski shows at SeaWorld the entire time.
Crazy. So when was the first professional show at SeaWorld?
Probably 72. The park opened in 70, and I don't know if they had the ski show going, but the ski show was they viewed it as a core element from the start, because they built a spectacular stadium. It started out at like 3,700, went over to 4,500 people, and we would do 7 shows a day in that stadium in July.
7 shows a day.
7 shows a day.
And we're talking in Florida now for our listeners, right?
No.
Florida
We're talking Ohio.
Oh,
this is Ohio.
Ohio was the first. Got
Yeah,
it.
so
Okay.
that was the first.
7
Would've seen
shows
Florida.
a day in Ohio.
Yeah. And working 6 days a week, typically. Everybody was in great shape. I mean, and there's no better way to stay in shape than do what you love to do. And there were a lot of very fit folks. And,
How did you navigate staffing with that? 7 shows a day. Did you have split shifts, or did people ski 7 shows in a day? How did that work?
People skied 7 shows a day. Typically, it wasn't every day. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think Wednesday was sometimes a 7-show day, but they did in, gosh, I can't remember how many days it was. It was, June, July, and August, maybe a week into September. They did over 1 million people through that park.
Wow.
In northwestern Ohio or northeastern Ohio. It was pretty. Seeing a killer whale in other marine mammals in Ohio was just a big hit. It was a great business model, and they did really well with it for a long time. Yeah.
How long were the shows? If you were doing 7 a day, what was the duration of each show?
I don't know, Dan.
Back then, 30 minutes, and then we started, tightening them up to like 25.
Okay. Still, I mean, that's It's a lot of water skiing in one day. Since Ohio opened, how many SeaWorld locations have had water ski shows?
All four.
Yeah.
I guess how many SeaWorld locations were there
California,
at one point? I guess I don't even know.
Ohio,
Four.
Florida, and Texas.
Correct.
There were 4 locations, Texas, Ohio, San Diego, and Florida. San Diego was first, then Ohio, then Florida, and then Texas.
Got it. All right.
And so all 4 of those have had water ski shows.
Yes.
All 4 have had those water ski shows at one time.
Yeah.
We had all 4 of them running at one time.
When you guys ran those when those were all 4 up and running, was every show unique or were they the same across the country?
Yeah, typically they were.
Really,
Go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say there were times when they were unique. There were times when they were all scripted the same, but because of location and little nuances, that they were all different in their own way. But there were
Did
a
they all
lot.
have was staffing the same? Like same number of skiers at each location, or was that different too?
Not necessarily. No. Sometimes one of the parks had a few less than the others. It just really, some of those decisions were based on local budgets.
How do I ask this? Which location was the most, I don't know if this is the most popular, like what location had the most visitors? Was there one that stood out among the others?
SeaWorld of Florida it's running annually. SeaWorld of Texas was seasonal. SeaWorld of California, the park wasn't seasonal, but the show was seasonal. So Florida was the one park that had a year-round show, and it generally would have the most seasoned skiers and performers in it, and that was a 365-day a year opportunity for us and for the skiers and for the visitors to SeaWorld. The other shows ran pretty much during the summer months, but Texas, talk about the Texas schedule a little bit, Dan. It was unique.
It actually started year round. We had, when I went out to Texas to open that park, we were about 5 weeks from beginning rehearsals, and I got called into a meeting, and I had 35 skiers, performers on staff at that point, and that were hired and ready to start in 5 weeks. And I got called into a meeting and said, we're expecting crazy attendance. We're going to do 9 shows a day, and we need you to have a double staff. So in 5 weeks, I had to find 35 more performers, and we had 70 performers per day, or to cover, our staffing per day. And we ran 2 shifts. I still remember them, 8 to 4:30 and 2:45 to 11:15, and I worked both of them every day. And we did 9 shows a day.
How long did that persist?
That was for the summer. So we did 9 shows, 4 or 5, 4 of the 7 days a week for mid-June all the way through August.
Were those like on the hour, like
Well,
clockwork?
they were. Okay, so we were in at 8. I think our first show was like 10:30, and then it was every hour and a half after that.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was exciting. I will say that when you bring in that many new people and do that many shows a day, it can be a challenge on your keeping everybody healthy. I'll just say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But everybody was learning so quick. You were forced into you were forced into the opportunity to do things in the show that maybe you haven't been completely consistent at, but it was So it was just such a summer of opportunity.
That's cool.
Very cool.
But shortly after that, the next year, the park did go what they called seasonal, but it was a long season. It was a full-time season for about 8 months, and then 3-day weekends for the rest of the time, and then that slowly tapered off into they're open. They're open full-time in the summer, and then weekends and shoulder periods, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and so on. So they're still running a lot more than just their summer months. But the ski show currently is mainly a summer production.
So when you guys were, I was listening to Tom and chatting, you guys talking about when the show was owned by SeaWorld internally versus when it became a contract show. So I'm curious particularly about the show writing aspect over the years and what that looked like. So like, what was the red tape like when it was internal to SeaWorld? I assume shows were heavily, corporate SeaWorld had to have their hand on what that show looked like. Versus did that change when it became a contract show? Did you have more autonomy? Talk to us and our listeners about how the show production comes alive and who plays a role in that when you're dealing with a major theme park like SeaWorld.
Sure. We're actually, I'll jump in here. We're actually a talent provider. So we only provide the talent. We don't provide the creative, the product. Now we, of course, get to put our 2 cents in here and there, but SeaWorld owns and does really well with the creative, the full production elements, the music, the script, the costumes. But Jess is in the heart of it right now. Jess, I mean, why don't you speak to what that's like for you on a daily basis?
The production side is still we still have where Dan's mentioning our input is still in the choreography as far as the ski skill set of what they're looking for and how that fits with the production that they're wanting to be portrayed. So as far as the working with the SeaWorld production team, whoever that might be that they have in-house, or if they have another contractor within doing the actual production, we're working heavily navigating the boat patterns and the ski element sides of what it is that they want to be portrayed out on the water that fits their theme and their production.
From our point of view, we got the best part of the best element in a show production. It was very objective. We need this many people, we need these skills, we need from this date to this date, we need this kind of quality, and that's a good way to do it. On the production side, it's subjective, and you could, and we did. One time we ventured into show production and doing a turnkey talent and production, and spent a lot of money, a lot of time, flew to this theme park and showed them what we had. They seemed pretty impressed with it, and didn't hear from them, and it turns out they did a show very similar to what we had proposed, but they did it with somebody else that I think they had prearranged would end up doing it. So we knew our lane, and we stayed in our lane, and SeaWorld was just, we couldn't do what they did from a production standpoint. There's no way. I mean, you're talking expertise. There's the very first show ski show that SeaWorld did in Ohio in 1974 was called the Roaring Twenties Water Frolics. The producers were Ken Johnson and Dan Kibbe. Ken Johnson went on, Hollywood producer, went on to produce the $6 Million Man, The Bionic Woman, The Incredible Hulk. I mean, major TV series. That's the guy who was at SeaWorld of Ohio in 1974, creating the vaudeville show. It was called the Roaring Twenties Water Frolics, and it just, they were out of their lane, and what they produced was amazing, but it just didn't work for the audience in Ohio, and it was eventually streamlined into something that worked for everybody. But you know, from a business standpoint and a love of sport standpoint, we knew our guide rails, and we tried to stay within those.
That production side, did they, or maybe they learned it over time, but they didn't really know skiing, right? They knew production, and so it's
Right.
ultimately like Jess is talking about, her role as show director is to work hand in hand with them on flow and timing and boat patterns to fit into their vision of the production. Is that how that played out over the years?
Yes, clearly, and it actually, that first year it played out that way. At some point, the Hollywood guys went back to Hollywood and were wildly successful, and the ski people created something that had an, you know, escalating quality rating, because the audience, an audience doesn't want something super complicated. They just want to sit there and be entertained, and that's what, you know, what Gary Thompson is somebody you need to talk to about that first year in Ohio, because man, oh man, I can't imagine doing what he did with, you know, that quality of people, and still ending up with something at the end of the year that SeaWorld could be proud of. But he did. I mean, it was a remarkable job.
What do you think? So this question for all of you: what best SeaWorld show ever in your opinion?
I'll go last.
You have the most to choose from.
True.
He does.
You know what? This is a cop out, but I'm going to say the one that I was doing at that point, because every single show that we ever did felt like it was a step up. It was a step up from last time, and like if you were to turn the question around and say, well, what was the worst show you ever did? I can't think of one. They were just, they were all.
Is there one that stands out from a production standpoint that was the most fun, the best response, maybe combined with the best talent you had on staff at that time? Is there a show that stands out?
Go for it, Jess.
I would have to say the reversion of Beach Blanket that we did in Texas is probably one of my most favorites. I started when Baywatch started in all the parks. That was my first time, my first experience. So of course, that was my first professional ski show to be a part of. It was a multi-million-dollar production. But I'd have to say it was the Beach Blanket remake was probably one of my favorites. But Intensity Games was also a super fave as well, with the competitive aspect. The females' talent getting to maybe do a lot more on the water than just your basic. I wouldn't be where I was today if Intensity Games hadn't been produced and come along and pushed a lot of ladies into different aspects of the sport of show skiing, with jumping and barefooting and
and rock stars. I mean, they responded. They got the opportunity and totally responded, and it was just like, it wasn't like, oh wow, that's really cool that, you know, the ladies can do that. It was like, oh, that was really good skiing. I mean, that's just, you know, there was no caveat as to, well, that's, you know, good for the ladies or anything like that. One thing I do want to jump in and say, Production-wise, Pirates was pretty amazing. Pirates in Florida, the set pieces, and you know, to SeaWorld's credit, I mean, they Nautique drops off a bare bones fish Nautique hull, and Scenic Arts goes to work and makes this unbelievable, workable pirate ship that drives in and drives out every day. And I mean, it's beautiful. It's absolutely, you know, and that's just like one little piece. Beach Blanket Ski Party, you know, the diner was made into a huge hamburger, and we did Flying Barefoot start off of that. There was just so much. That's why it's really hard to kind of nail down just one.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tom, how about you?
Okay, so Beach Blanket was in my gap period, so I wasn't involved in that. I did see it, loved it. For me, without a doubt, Hatfields and McCoys was the most fun to produce, the most fun to perform in, the most fun for the audience, especially at SeaWorld of Ohio. SeaWorld of Ohio is a 5-hour drive from where the Hatfields and McCoys lived. And we got a lot of traffic. The park got a lot of traffic from that area, and we sort of goofed up the hillbilly aspect of that, and they ate it up. They just loved it. It was an easy crowd to just get roars from, and you know, you'd be skiing by and you'd hear it from the water. It was an amazing response. As a matter of fact, our current vice president is a Hatfield Klansman. So I mean, that's how wide and far the Hatfield and McCoy families have extended their clan. But it was historically accurate too. You know, there was a Razorback hog involved. There were John Z. Hatfield and Rosanna McCoy lovers from the opposite families, and we built all of that stuff up. It's very historically accurate. And the music producer was a guy from California also, who just did an incredible job putting together the music for that show. The costumes were easy. Overalls and heater shirts, and you know, that was about it. And it was, you know, that part was easy and fun, except for the girls. The girls always dressed up real pretty.
Yeah, they made the ladies look nice.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, they did. They sure did.
Great. Those are fun shows, fun memories, really great stuff. Adam, you know, summer's underway. We're talking now about the history of SeaWorld, and we got to talk about the board shop, and their owner, Jason Richling, skied at SeaWorld. So
sure did.
Perfect connection here to have Jason and his company sponsor this podcast. The board shop is stocked with everything you need. They have closeouts on winter sports gear right now, but it's summertime, and they're fully stocked with all the latest and greatest gear for your summer water sports season.
Yeah, I mean, Jason, like you said, former SeaWorld skier and big supporter of the podcast. But yeah, the board shop, apparel, boards, bindings, vests, ropes, handles, accessories, and pretty much everything else. And they've got all the top brands: Ronix, Radar, Eagle, Follow, Quicksilver, Billabong, and all the rest you're looking for. So when you're ready to update your summer gear and apparel, the board shop is your one-stop shop. Check out their shop in Lake Geneva, which is awesome, or check them out online at bswake.com. That's bswake.com.
You know, glad you mentioned Jason. He was one of our brightest stars. Matt May and Jason Richling. As soon as the binding was, you know, the foot was in the binding, it was a show, and it was a show like nobody else could deliver, and it was just awesome to come to the park and watch those guys do what they did, and athletically, you know, not even to mention, you know, showmanship and that sort of thing. It was a dream job, and I was just so blessed to live that.
Yeah, that's awesome. They are incredible athletes. You know, we've talked in this podcast about professional shows worldwide, but wanted to ask you guys, particularly, was there a rivalry with Cypress Gardens when both programs were in their heyday? Was there a rivalry there, or not?
I would say on the flag football field there was a
I knew
rivalry.
you were going to say the football field.
We had the opportunity to play them. Yeah, we had the opportunity to play them in flag football at least a couple times. But no, I don't know if it would be a rivalry as much as it's interesting. During the early years, there wasn't much crossover at all. Later on, it wasn't unusual to have a part-timer who worked at SeaWorld and also worked at Cypress Gardens. But I don't know, Tom. With you, it was it any different with you, Tom? Or
I don't think there was a rivalry when we opened up with superheroes in Orlando. I mean, that was a multi-million-dollar show. The costumes alone cost an outrageous amount of money. And incidentally, the first group of costumes we had in SeaWorld of Ohio, they were spandex. We didn't realize that if you threw a wet costume in a hot dryer, the tight fit was no longer a tight fit, and then they had to reproduce all of those suits. So, that was a very expensive show, and it had great reviews when it premiered in Orlando, and SeaWorld knew. Cypress Gardens knew it was coming, and they added some elements to their shows, and I think it really helped them to improve their game a little bit and create a more entertaining product. But like Dan said, a lot of people worked in both places. I started there, and that was the most amazing opportunity to leave high school, and 2 weeks later I'm skiing at Cypress Gardens. It was just something I couldn't imagine when I was a kid growing up. So yeah, I have really a nice place in my heart for that place and those people.
So we're in this, unfortunately, this shrinking universe of professional ski shows. What are the challenges with professional ski shows, here or abroad?
They're expensive. They're very expensive to launch. Workers' comp is outrageously expensive. Liability insurance is outrageously expensive. Salaries, taxes, that's before you even get to production, music, costumes, all of those other things. It's hard to compete, especially in a park where there's rides. It was a little different when SeaWorld was primarily a show park, because they were used to the pain of creating something and having to cover the expense in the current year. With a ride, you can amortize that expense over years. It's a capital expenditure, amortize it over years. You're not dealing with the pain in year one. In anything that is expense oriented, where you have to pay for it in the current year, makes it a challenge for a company like the big theme parks in the country. It's sad. It really is. We were in the heyday, and we just really hit a sweet spot when we were doing what we were doing, and still are.
It's fascinating. Like, I don't know that people ever make that connection literally at theme parks between rides and shows, like the cost and the liability and the staffing and all of that. Like, when I was a kid and we went on family vacations to Florida, we went to SeaWorld and we went to Universal Studios, and we went to shows. Like, we watched the stunt shows and the street shows, and that was so much fun, and those are core memories for me. And then everything became rides and roller coasters, and it's really interesting, and too bad for skiing to see that evolution.
Sure is. Sad, but we're hanging in there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jess.
yeah.
Well, you guys are hanging in there, and I want to ask Jess that, and actually the rest of you can chime in. How has SeaWorld San Antonio in particular adapted and worked with SeaWorld to maintain a show?
They know that it's the people they're bringing to the park want to be entertained. It's SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment. So they try to provide the entertainment and the shows within the realm that they can, along with the roller coasters. I think they're trying to find happy mediums with a little bit of both. And we have been very fortunate that this lake was built here at this particular venue for the ski show. It's, one of the sites, I think I've talked about this a little bit before, is that this site was developed, other sites have been developed to model this park's show site. So that helps. And they do pride themselves, I think, on a happy medium between the actual shows and live entertainment as well as, the roller coasters.
What, you talk about, kind of the heyday of SeaWorld shows and the money that went into production and the talent that you guys had. What do you think really made SeaWorld shows unique? I mean, I think I've only seen one in person. I've seen a lot of them on YouTube, and just from watching that, they're wildly entertaining from both the stage and the skiing. But if you had to pinpoint one thing, like this is really what made SeaWorld shows stand out, what do you think that would be?
I would say that they were able to find productions that carried over well with an audience that doesn't know skiing. So they're skiing out there like we're carrying out a story or a theme out on the water that most of the people aren't avid skiers that are sitting in the stadium. They are in awe of every aspect of it. And we treat, I think, the way we treat, and that I tell every performer this, when they come in, treat every show as like they've never seen this show before, that is the first time. And it might be the very first time someone's seen someone live just water skiing, let alone flipping over a jump ramp or barefooting. That's the component that is hopefully a driving force to keep the ski shows going. Yeah.
I think,
Dan, did you want to add something to that?
Well, the environment that SeaWorld created, even back, in '79 when I started, when I got there, I really liked skiing. I really liked being a skier, but I fell in love with performing. SeaWorld created an environment where, it sounds stupid, but the cool, I was 17, so who's the coolest guys around? The coolest guys around are the ones who could perform. The coolest guys around are the ones who did comedy. And and that just grew inside me. When it's one thing when somebody sees us, make it back to front. That's really cool. But boy, if you can make somebody smile, if you can make somebody laugh, and what Jess is talking about, if you figure there's a family of 4, there's probably one person who wants to see water skiing, and 3 people who are like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm kind of into it. But when you create a storyline, now you've got the other 3 people there, and this person over now, he makes me laugh, and if you can make people laugh, you're drawing them in, and that's why they're at a theme park, to get a smile on their face. And so the environment that was fostered by Tom Weber and all of those that were there when I first got there to become a performer, I really think is what made the difference between a really good show and a great show.
And Tom, were those conversations in the early going?
When you asked what was the favorite show, I think that's why I chose Rockin' Ski Party. It's because I was able to perform as a character. You're not just skiing, but you're portraying a character as part of the theme and the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tom, when the shows first got started at SeaWorld, was there ever outward conversation about how can we be different than Tommy Bartlett or Cypress Gardens, or similar or different? How can we stand out? What's going to set us apart, or what are we going to model ourselves after in those regards?
Yeah, I think so because I'm sure the SeaWorld execs visited, if not Tommy Bartlett, certainly Cypress Gardens, and they, they're in Southern California. They're 2.5 hours from Hollywood. They're show people. The shows they're already producing are very entertainment oriented. In terms of costumes, music, lighting, all of those other things. And they just, I think it was their mission to create something that, was broadly entertaining and heavily themed. I think their first attempt, I think anybody that was a part of it, with the first attempt realized that they went too heavy on the production and really didn't have a good handle on what the opportunities were with skiing and what those characters could do on the water. They would think of that, well, surely this guy, if he can do this, he can do that. And, they weren't thinking about transitions and, they work with a cast, an unlimited cast in Hollywood, it seems, but we would have one person doing 3 different characters, 4 different characters, costume changes, all of those things. And, that's why the first attempt missed the mark a little bit. But as I said, Gary and the entertainment team in Ohio, I won't say the ship was tipped over, but it was, it wasn't a real entertaining product until later in the season when the water skiing was better understood and the performers were learning to perform.
All right, we're going to wrap things up here with one last question. I know I've asked you what your favorite show was, and that was probably a hard question. Now I'm going to make it even more difficult because I'm going to have you narrow it down even more. Best memory of your SeaWorld experience?
Me first. I am one of 3 people on this podcast that met their wife or met their spouse. Absolute favorite. SeaWorld of Texas. Hands down. Memory, met my wife. Tracy.
All right.
Now we all have to say that.
Top that.
Jess, how about you? Favorite memory?
Okay, let's agree that's the top memory
Okay.
for everybody. What's your number 2 memory?
Okay. I'll jump in there still because I like to talk. I would say if it's not one particular memory, but it was making people laugh, Flivver acts. The stuff that we did in the Flivver and the way we would draw people in Flivver with the comedy, that's favorite of all. It's not a single time, but it's every single time we went out there to do Flivver.
Yep.
Cool.
Oh,
Jess?
there are so many. That's a really hard question. Some of the ski expos in SeaWorld of Florida were a one-night show production to showcase the boat nautiques, skis. They were fun, something different. I think those are really good memories. Man. It's hard to pick one.
It's a tough question. Yeah.
Tom, how about you?
Well, so it was more an embarrassing moment, but it's for sure the most memorable. When Ronald Reagan was running for President of the United States, he did a campaign stop at SeaWorld. They watched the ski show, and Last act was the pyramid. The pyramid came around, landed, and you look on stage. Actually, as we were approaching, Ronald Reagan is standing on stage to shake everybody's hand. And I was a big fan still. I mean, I've always been a big fan of Ronald Reagan. And I landed deep with a girl on my skis. And if you're familiar with that, you have this plume of water that comes over, lands on the top of your head, and then drains down your face. So by the time I got up and shook his hand, the water was still running down my face. And as I was shaking his hand, I said, "It's a pleasure to meet you." And when I said pleasure, I popped my pee, and it sprayed water in his face. He reacted to it, and I just kept running. It was a little embarrassing. So I spit in the president's face. That's my story.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, that's great stuff. You guys, this was fantastic. We loved hearing about your history with SeaWorld, the show, your love of it. You all clearly have this passion for it over the years. I think it's going to be fun for our audience to listen to, and I really want to thank you guys for sharing your love and your passion for SeaWorld today. So thanks for being on the show.
Podcast.
Appreciate the opportunity.
That was fun. You know, the entertainment of SeaWorld really resonated with me. Like just hearing that over and over, the production, the money, the Hollywood influence in the SeaWorld show is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and it just you know, as they're talking about it, it's kind of, you know, back as a kid when I saw a SeaWorld show, it just put me right back in that seat. And then Dan starts talking about, you know, the Flivver Act, and I'm like, yeah, that to me, that's what.
Yeah.
If I think about a SeaWorld show, it's the Flivver. Like, man,
we watched that Gold Rush.
Bring the Flivver back.
We watched the Gold Rush video many times prepping for last summer's show.
Yep.
Right?
We did.
So
we did. Yeah, they did such a great job. And at the same time as I'm thinking about the Flivver and how great the show was and whatnot, I'm also bummed just for the professional ski show industry as a whole, because it's just, there's how many of them are left, right? Like,
right, they're dropping like flies.
SeaWorld in Texas, that's like it. It's just unfortunate because they're so good. So good.
Yep.
What do we got coming up next, Matt?
Our next episode is going to be our tournament season preview.
What?
It's actually going to come out. That episode's going to come out after the Mercury invite, so we'll have a little intel there. I've already been chatting with a few people. I just played golf with Bob Kohler, and we were talking Aquanuts and Mad City, and so we're going to do our tournament season preview in a couple of weeks, and we're off and running to summer, so should be great. Thank you to our sponsors today. Thank you to Sega Sports. Trampoline training, on-water training. Take your game to the next level with Sega Sports. Find them at segasports.us. And the board shop, Jason Richling, SeaWorld alum. Great to have them on this episode. Get all your summer water sports gear at bswake.com.
And of course, thanks again to all of our listeners and viewers. This is Matt and Adam, and this is The Ski Show.
Thank you for listening to The Ski Show, the ultimate show ski podcast with Matt and Adam. If you have questions or ideas for the show, find us on social media or message us at theskishowpodcast@gmail.com.